Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Cope Life podcast. I'm so grateful that you're here. Today, we have a very powerful episode. Today, we're going to talk about family, friends, and trauma. And I think it's very important to talk about family, friends, and trauma because in this episode, I want to talk to you about what you can do when someone that you love has experienced trauma. So, the things we're going to cover today, we're going to talk about what a person who's been traumatized needs. What do they need right after experiencing trauma? And then what do they need going forward, whether it's the days after, maybe weeks, months, or longer. And we're also going to get into what you can do as a family member, a close personal friend, and really how all of that kind of ties into whether the individual that you love and care for develops post traumatic growth or PTSD. So we're going to jump right in and talk about really what does someone need right after experiencing trauma? What are you looking for right after experiencing trauma? And I'm going to tell you a story so that you can understand where this is going. So we all know about 9/11, September 11th, 2001. And of course we all know about it because we're told every year never forget. When that happened, when the towers in New York City came down, the medical system, the healthcare system of New York City was gearing up. They were prepared. And I'm not talking about the physical injuries from, the towers falling and those kinds of things. I'm talking about the mental health care aspect of healthcare in New York City. The idea was that there would be potentially tens of thousands of people who experienced PTSD. They were expecting thousands upon thousands of people. They were expecting to be completely overwhelmed with people who develop PTSD. But that didn't happen. Why is it that something so traumatic could happen, like a terrorist attack, which killed thousands of people? Why can that occur and the PTSD numbers don't go through the roof? They don't just greatly accelerate. The reason for that is because of what you need right after experiencing trauma. And I'm going to tell you about one little boy that really encapsulates this point. There's a 5-year-old little boy whose daycare was maybe half mile or so from the towers. And so when the first tower fell, of course, everything in that area then became on alert, right? Everything in that area recognized that something crazy was happening, something traumatic, a great tragedy. And so they began to evacuate everything in that area. Then what happened was, of course, the second tower was hit, and one boy who was 5 years old went home. Parents came to get him, got him home as soon as they could. So later on, this boy was speaking to a therapist. A lot of these children were they were being seen by counselors and mental health therapists, child psychologists, really just for a once over, just for a quick mental health check to see if you're suffering. And they asked this boy to draw a picture of what happened on 9/11. And he drew a picture of the two towers. And in his picture, on the ground, were a bunch of little black squares, a little bunch of little squares, little rectangles. And the little boy was asked, "What are those rectangles? Why are you drawing these little rectangles on the ground?" And the little boy said that they were mattresses so that the people who were falling could land safely and not get hurt. Why that is so profound is because there's nothing about this child's picture that demonstrated that he was in any danger. He never felt as though his life was in danger, although he experienced a traumatic event. The reason for that, and the reason why so many people did not develop PTSD, is because of what you need directly after trauma. You need safety. What happens when you experience trauma is your body reacts, right? We've all heard about the mind body connection, the stress response, fight or flight. And so your body just kicks into survival mode. And the longer it's in survival mode, the more likely you are to experience real physiological and psychological impacts because your body and brain don't know when to turn off the survival instinct. When are we safe? And so imagine if you are in that state for an extremely long period of time. It changes your brain physically. But for so many people on September 11th, what happened was they quickly got to a safe space. When you think about your own life, you can envision where you feel safe. So many of you probably immediately thought of your bedroom, your living room, your home. Maybe you thought of your parents' home, something like that. There's a place where you feel safe, where you feel that nothing's going to happen to you. And that's the first thing that we need after experiencing trauma. We need to get to a state or a point of feeling safe and secure. And on 9/11, that's what happened. So many people left the area and immediately went to their safe space. They went home. And in the comfort of their own living rooms, they were able to avoid the threat. They didn't feel like they were going to die. And so their bodies were able to turn off the fight or flight. Their body was able to get out of survival mode. And so that's what needs to happen right after experiencing trauma. And one thing that we're going to cover the next point in today's episode is where do family and friends come in? If someone that you know has experienced severe trauma, what's your role? Where do you fit into this? Family and friends enable the person to feel safe because a lot of times the person who's been traumatized cannot go to a safe space. One place that they go to is the emergency room. And as you know, when you go to the emergency room, you do not immediately feel safe. So many of us worry about what's going to happen in the emergency room. And if you've experienced trauma, you don't know what the triage is going to be. Whether you think you have broken bones or whether it's something psychological, you experience trauma. Is anything damaged internally? You don't know. Did you suffer a concussion? You don't know. So the emergency room may be a place where the attack is not present. The trauma is not present. However, the body hasn't been able to completely relax in the emergency room. And so there's still some semblance of fight or flight. There's still some survival mode going on. And one thing that happens with us is we have what's called mirror neurons. And so we mirror the physiological state and the actions of other people. So what I'm telling you is that when you go with someone who's been traumatized to the emergency room, or maybe you meet them where they are at the scene of the car accident, maybe something happened at school or at the store, and you meet them there, if you give them a hug, it's very simple what I'm about to say. If someone has been traumatized and you give them a hug, because of the mirror neurons in their body will begin to emulate what your body's doing. And so what that means is that if your heart rate is slower, their heart rate will begin to slow down. If your breathing is calm, then their breathing will begin to calm down. And so what happens is their body is using your body to help regulate itself. In other words, turning off the emergency response, the stress response, the fight or flight, turning that off, your body then is really kind of a vehicle or a messenger to their body that there is no longer an imminent threat, that they are able to relax and to calm down. And it's very important that they get to that safe space. It's very important that they recognize that there's no imminent threat. And understand that when I say that they need to recognize that there's no imminent threat, I'm not talking about data and information. Understand, they recognize that they're no longer being attacked. If they were in a car accident, they recognize that the accident has already happened. It's in the past. They know that. They're not even in their vehicle anymore. They know that the threat has passed. However, there's a part of their brain that knows that, but because they've experienced trauma, the information processing centers of their brain are not in charge of what's going on in their body. What's going on in their body is being controlled by the emotional side of their brain. So you can give them all of the data, you can give them all of the information, you can say to them, it's over now. You saying that is not as impactful as a hug, as eye contact, maybe you coming close and you can rub their shoulders, something of that nature where your body is communicating to their body that the threat is over. So immediately after trauma, use your body and your voice, everything about you, even your facial expression, to show them that the emergency is over, that the threat is over. So, again, immediately after experiencing trauma, what traumatized people need is a safe space where they feel that the threat is over. And the word feel is a key word in this process because it is their emotional part of their brain that is regulating what their body does. So they can't think they're safe. That's not good enough. They have to feel that they're safe. And what I want you to understand is that for them to feel that they're safe, you don't have to have all the right words. You don't need to be trained in trauma response. You need to know how to care. You need to know how to love and how to be present. And we've all been there. We've all been there. We've all experienced it, whether we're the ones who experienced the trauma or we are the ones who are trying to be there for someone else, where really the hug, the embrace, even the shared breathing and energy and that calm voice saying, it's okay, I'm here. We've all been there and we know the effects of that. And we also know that when you are really stressed about something, when you've experienced something horrible, you actually do not want someone to give you a lot of information about what is and is not happening. They can see what's going on. If they were attacked, they can tell that the attack is over. But the part of their brain that is receiving that information is not in charge of their stress response. Their emotional brain is in charge. And so when you connect with them through a soft, calming voice, connect with them through physical contact, rubbing an arm, holding hands, or giving them a hug. When you connect with them in that way, you allow the transference of your calm energy into them so that they can calm down. And it's not just about being calm, you're literally helping their body to get back to a state of homeostasis where they're able to turn off their stress response. I'm talking about literally turning off the adrenaline and the cortisol because they don't need it anymore. But you can't tell them they don't need it. You can't tell them you should calm down. What you can do is approach them. The eye contact, the soft voice, the soft, calming touch. So that's what happens immediately after trauma. And there's lots of things that you might want to do for them that you can't, and that's okay. There are professionals that do things like triage, whether it's bandaging a wound or some kind of medical exam. And so your role is really to just help them mentally and emotionally transfer from the state of panic to a state of calm and relaxed. And sometimes it's more difficult than others, which is why you have to be patient, you have to be open, and you have to give them the space to really maneuver how they need to so that they can feel safe in this space. That's what happens immediately after the moment. But there is a such thing as delayed onset PTSD. Understand that the safe space I'm talking about right after the trauma is different than the safe space during the process of a return to normalcy. So you have to understand that social connections, social support is the biggest factor in determining if someone develops post traumatic stress disorder or post traumatic growth. So it's great that you were there for them after the event. You were there for them because you're full of love, you're full of compassion, you're full of empathy. But now they're in a point of a return to normalcy. And lots of different things could have happened, lots of different traumas from sexual assault to witnessing violence and death to a car accident. So, regardless of that, they need to, again, feel safe and secure as they readjust to normalcy and understand that trauma changes the brain. Literally, there are images, there's CAT scans and fMRIs and neuroimaging that shows the brain is changed because of trauma. And so the return to normalcy is actually the healing of the brain. And the more support they get from the people who love and care for them, the more likely they are to fully heal from the trauma. And so, what I'm telling you is to prevent your loved ones, your friends, the people you care about from developing PTSD, you need to ensure that your support, your love, compassion, positive energy, empathy, understand that these supportive behaviors from you need to be consistent and continual. Consistent and continual support after the trauma helps to prevent them from developing PTSD. And so I wanted you to know that because I understand what it's like to feel helpless. And I need you to understand that you are not helpless. When your friends and family endure trauma, you are more powerful in their lives than you may have possibly ever been. And you may not feel like it. You may not think that you have the power to impact any aspect of their lives, but you do. And I'm not talking about always asking them if they need something. You don't always ask them, are they okay? Do you need something? What can I do for you? I'm talking about a return to normalcy. So, if you guys used to go play pool on Friday nights or used to watch sports together every Sunday afternoon, get back to that. Get back to that normalcy. Because what happens is the brain subconsciously recognizes this state of normalcy. And so it helps the brain to recognize that the safe space and the social support continue. And that return to normalcy, combined with your empathy and compassion and positive energy, enable those you care about to develop post traumatic growth instead of post traumatic stress disorder. So that's what I have for you. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm so excited about what's going on this upcoming year. Stay tuned. I have a lot of announcements, but for right here, right now, I hope that this episode helped you because some of you are in situations where you know people right now who are struggling. You know people right now who are dealing with trauma and you don't know what to do. And I'm telling you what to do. Be there for them. Be there for them. Help them return to a sense of normalcy. Continue to show them that you care, that they matter, or return to normalcy. Where did they feel safe before? Continue to do the things that enable them to feel safe. That's what you have to do. You have to really connect with people and let them know prior to your trauma, this is what you meant to me, and you still mean that to me. You are still my best friend. You're still my wife, my husband. I still love you. And open yourself up to more hugs, more positive energy, more empathy. And I'm going to say it again. When you have that consistent, continual support and empathy for those who have been traumatized, you are literally quantifiably ensuring that they experience post traumatic growth instead of PTSD. You may not feel like it, you may not think so, but you are a part of the healing process. And so for that, I believe you have to stop judging yourself, stop overthinking, and just show up with love and compassion. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I appreciate you. I love you. And until next time, take care, my friends.